God is faithful, not just what he says, but what he does, because he keeps his promises. He is faithful to who he is. See, not just what he says, but who he is. He is faithful to who he is. So when he says, when God tells us that he loves us, that love doesn't change. That love is always there. In the book of Romans, it says, I am convinced that nothing, neither life, nor death, nor angels, nor demons, nor darkness, nor light, nothing, not heaven and earth, or hell, nothing can keep us from the love of God. Why? Because that is part of his faithfulness. He will go through what he needs to do, what he needs to do, so that you will see that his word is true, that he is true. It's like the song Reckless Love. Like, I don't know if you know about this, but Reckless Love was like kind of a controversial song. Like, we like the song, we sing the song. When people were like, God's love is not reckless. God's love is planned and calculated, or this and that. It's like, yeah, but God's love can seem reckless to us. Because like the song says, he'll tear down walls. He'll climb up mountains. He'll do what he needs to so that his promises can come through, so that who he is shown to you. He will do what he can. And that means that sometimes things are going to be messy, because he does what he needs to do. He is faithful in his word. He is faithful in his action. He is faithful in who he is. And that's very different from what we've experienced in life, because human faithfulness is very drastically different. He's not like us. The Bible says God is not like man that he would lie to us. He's not like us. He's not like human beings. He's so different, and he's not bound by the same rules as we are. So he's not like us. See, God's faithfulness is often based on is based on who he is, while human faithfulness is based on the actions of other people. If someone at some point in our lives is too much for us or has hurt us too much, we cut off our faithfulness. And rightly so in times. It is okay in times to cut people out, to create boundaries in your life for people who have hurt you. You do not have to continue being faithful to those people. But see, our faithfulness is not like that. Even the people that have hurt God and betrayed God and turned their backs on him and don't love him and don't believe in him, he is still faithful to. And that's where it's different. That's why we have to understand about God's faithfulness, that it's so unlike human faithfulness. We don't have to be exactly like God in that. Yeah, we have to love our neighbor. That means even people that we consider our enemies, people that we have been hurt by. But that doesn't mean that they have to be in our lives all the time. But for God, that's different. He is more than us and extends that love and grace and faithfulness to people who we might even think don't deserve it. And that's hard. That's hard to hold on to, because we tend to want to think that God should instead punish those people, that they aren't deserving of God's faithfulness. Yet, because of who he is, he still extends love and grace, because that's who he is. He's bigger than we would make him out to be. He is more than we would make him out to be. And that is why it is so beautiful, so different, that we can trust in that faithfulness. That there's nothing that you can do to change God's mind about who you are. You make a mistake, God still loves you. You make another mistake, God still loves you. You make 10 years worth of mistake, God still loves you. A lifetime worth of mistake, God still loves you. You ignore him, deny him, walk away from him, God still loves you. You hurt him, betray him, God still loves you. He is still there. When we doubt, when we're walking the walk and we're having difficulties and we don't know where life is going to end up on the other side, even though he said, I promise you, you're going to get to the other side, you're going to make it through. And we're sitting there thinking, I don't think that's true. God's still there. He hasn't left us. In fact, Jesus said in Matthew 28:20, he says, surely I am with you always. I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. God's faithfulness is in his action. God's faithfulness is in his presence. God's faithfulness is in his word. God's faithfulness is who he is. So then, what can we do about that, though? Why is that important to us? It's good to know that God is faithful, but what does that matter to our lives? It matters because we need to trust God's faithfulness. And that's not easy. That's not an easy thing to do because we often project our own imperfections or the imperfections of others onto God. If we have someone, if we call God our Father and we hear people call God their Father, our God is Father, God the Father. Some of us have not had good relationships with our fathers. And then we project that relationship onto God. And say, well, he must be like my father if he's called Father. He's not the same as that, though. He's different. It's important that we need to know God's faithfulness in order to trust God's faithfulness. And there are two key things that we need to do in that. First, how do we trust God's faithfulness? We have to look back. We have to look back. The past is important. We should dwell on the past forever because then we get stuck in it. But looking back is important. One of the things I do every so often in my life is I have like a suitcase, I actually literally have like this antique suitcase that was my grandpa's. And I have it filled with like journals from over the years. And occasionally what I will do is I will sit down and I'll take them out and I'll start going through them. And I start remembering different things that have happened in my life, different things that I've done, different things that I've seen, and most importantly, different things that I've seen God do in my life. Difficult situations that I've been in that he's gotten me out of. Times that I was hurting and lost in darkness that he saved me from. Times that I was in pain and he brought me healing. And it wasn't always instant. It was sometimes over the course of years, I would see the change that was happening in me, the growth that was happening in me. Looking back at our past is an important way to learn how to trust God's faithfulness. Because he has already done so much for us. I mean, the fact that we are here in this moment, you're here and you have an opportunity to listen and you're watching online or you are listening to this later, that you hear this, you have been brought to this point somehow because of God's faithfulness. Maybe your life hasn't been, maybe it's not been easy, but you're still here. You've faced hardship, you've faced difficulty, you've faced loss, you've faced hurt, you've faced pain, but you're still here. We have to look back and remember. Because it's easy in situations right now in our life to see what is happening and think, I'm never going to make it out. I'm never going to see the other side of this. This is never going to change. I'm too tired. I'm too broken. I don't have the strength to get through it. And yet what I love about looking back at my journals, especially in times where I'm going through difficulty, I find myself in places where like, hey, God brought me through something just like this 5 years ago. I was in this space before and I made it out to the other side. I was suffering from depression and God brought me to a better place. That doesn't mean I still don't struggle with that, but I know that God can bring me out of it. I can keep walking and forward knowing that I have something better on the other side. When I've experienced loss and grief and pain, I know that there's healing on the other side because of what God has already done. Because of what he's already done. We can trust God. You see, this church right now, and even as we transition into the future to Safe Haven Church, the name of the church, Emmanuel, has come from the fact that we have always seen God faithful and with us. Emmanuel means God with us. You know, I've seen situations and times in this church's history that God has been faithful beyond our imagination. You know, the building that we're in, there used to be another building, and there's a playground outside where it was now, And that building was a building we used for our youth ministries for a long time. And then one day it just collapsed. Some of you have been here and seen that, and you were there. I was like, oh yeah, I remember. It was just like that. I don't even know what happened. One Sunday it was there, and then roof caved in. Why? How? We don't even know. Inspectors came, and they were like, yeah, it looks like someone dropped something on the building. But nothing dropped on the building. Hurricane came through, trees knocked down, and they all missed it. And then out of nowhere, it just dropped. It's like, this doesn't seem like a good thing. Well, I mean, it wasn't, we lost the whole building. But through that, we were able to receive insurance money to pay off the property of the main building and another property that we had. We got out of debt. We were able to see something happen. We were able to get finances so that we could see the vision of this church move forward. God was faithful, even in the moment that it seemed like we lost something. And see, that's what it is. I've been through a lot. We've all been through a lot these past couple of years. I lost my grandma, and it was difficult for us. It wasn't easy, but as time has moved on, we've seen that God has been faithful to us. And that he is birthing new things still with us. And even when it hurts to remember and think about it, when we look back, we can see the goodness and faithfulness of God.